It all started one morning when the protagonist, an ordinary person like anyone else, looked ahead and realized that his life needed a change. He had been dreaming of achieving something bigger, something that would motivate him to get up every day with a clear mission. But like all dreams, there were doubts. Would he be able to do it? What if everything goes wrong? Despite the uncertainty, the desire for change was stronger. He made the decision to start, to take the first step into the unknown. Excitement filled his body, but so did the feeling of scarcity. Time seemed to wait for no one. If I don't do it now, when will I? He thought. With those words in mind, he gathered the courage to go after what he desired. He knew the road wouldn't be easy, but the opportunity to change his life couldn't wait any longer. The clock, that constant reminder of how fleeting time is, told him that the opportunity wouldn't last forever. Was he ready to face what was coming? Despite his fears, the excitement of starting filled him with an energy he had never felt before. This was the beginning of something big. The uncertainty was still there, but the desire to achieve his goal was stronger than ever. The challenge had begun. At first, everything seemed perfect. The plan was clear, and the protagonist felt invincible. But soon doubts began to surface. The first signs of frustration appeared. Can I really do this? Am I really prepared? He wondered. The inner voices of doubt grew louder. Insecurity began to plant its first seeds in his mind. You're not good enough, he repeated to himself. There are so many people more prepared than you. Every small obstacle seemed to confirm his fears. The difficulties, instead of being opportunities for growth, began to be signs that maybe he wasn't cut out for this. Frustration consumed him, but something inside him wouldn't let him give up. Despite everything, there was a constant affirmation that began to gain strength in his mind. Yes, I can do this. The battle between doubt and confidence was fierce. In those moments of uncertainty, he realized that the easiest thing would be to give up. But something inside him told him to keep going. The key was to persist, not to be defeated by negative thoughts. Every time he heard a voice in his head telling him, "You can't," another voice, stronger, would respond, "Yes, you can." The protagonist decided it was time to take the next step. After reflecting on his doubts and deciding to continue, he threw himself into his first attempt with all his might. However, he soon realized that things weren't as easy as he had imagined. The reality check hit hard. The results weren't what he expected. He had made mistakes he hadn't anticipated, and each of those failures made him feel more and more frustrated. The road seemed longer than he had anticipated, and at that moment, despair took over him. He thought about quitting, about leaving it all behind. Maybe this isn't for me, he murmured. The mistakes were too obvious, and it seemed like the effort wasn't yielding the expected results. He felt stuck, trapped in a cycle of failed attempts. But inside, the small voice of hope was still present. He couldn't give up so soon. If there was one thing he had learned, it was that failure is inevitable, but what really matters is how you respond to it. With determination, he got up once again. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve, he thought. With that mindset, he decided to move forward despite the setbacks. The first attempt hadn't gone well, but he couldn't let that define his future. It was the lowest point, the moment when everything seemed to be against the protagonist. Things weren't improving, and doubts were multiplying. With each attempt, frustration grew, and hopelessness began to invade him more and more. He had reached a point where things weren't just not going as expected, but it seemed that they were getting worse with every step he took. The desire to give up grew stronger. Maybe this isn't meant for me, he thought, with a tired mind and a heavy heart. In his mind, the comfort of inaction seemed like the only way out. At least, if he gave up, he wouldn't have to face more failures or frustrations. But at the same time, something inside him wouldn't let him take the final step toward surrender. Confusion clouded his vision, but a part of him knew he was close to something important. Should he give up or keep going? The internal struggle was constant, like a battle between fear and determination. The easy option was to throw in the towel, but the real question was, who would he be if he let hopelessness define his future? The protagonist began to feel a small spark inside him. Despite the discomfort, something told him that not everything was lost. The key was to keep going, even though the path was uncertain. In the midst of his frustration, the protagonist found a moment of calm. He sat down and reflected on everything that had happened up until that point. He had tried many times, failed, and felt defeated. But in that moment, something changed. He realized that every failure wasn't a defeat, but a lesson. There's no failure, only learning, he thought. That phrase began to resonate in his mind, and a new perspective started to form. Instead of seeing his mistakes as insurmountable obstacles, he began to see them as opportunities to improve, to grow. The protagonist understood that each failed attempt had brought him closer to his goal, even though he hadn't noticed it at the time. With each mistake, he became wiser, stronger. Motivation resurfaced renewed, like a flame that wouldn't go out. He realized he couldn't give up, that each step he took, even if it was a false step, was bringing him closer to his goal. Hope filled his heart again, and with it, the excitement of moving forward. I'm going to continue, not because there are no setbacks, but because I know I can learn from them and come out stronger. The excitement of discovering his own power began to replace the despair. He was ready to take the next step. And this is where you too can start changing your story. Don't stop now. Stay until the end and watch how all of this transforms. If this story has inspired you, leave us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with those who need it most. Your future is in your hands, and only you can make it happen. Keep watching the video to learn more about how to apply these principles in your life. With the new clarity in his mind, the protagonist began to see things from a completely different perspective. He had started applying new strategies, new ideas that were helping him improve little by little. One of the things he discovered was the power of daily affirmations. He had heard of them before, but he didn't understand their true impact until he integrated them into his routine. He began to start each day with powerful affirmations, repeating to himself that he could achieve whatever he set his mind to. This small shift in his mindset began to have a profound impact on how he saw the world. Inspiration pushed him to keep learning, to apply everything he discovered on his path to success. He no longer saw challenges as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Each day, he felt more capable, more prepared, and his enthusiasm grew as he progressed. The progress was slow but clear. The small daily victories began to accumulate, and with them, confidence. He began to understand that true success wasn't measured by the big achievements of a single day, but by the sum of all those small efforts. Every step, every positive affirmation, every lesson learned from a mistake brought him closer to the person he wanted to become. The transformation had begun, and there was no turning back. As the protagonist continued his journey, something incredible began to happen. The constant effort started to pay off. The small improvements that once seemed insignificant now began to accumulate and turned into something remarkable. Achievements that once seemed distant were now within reach. The change, although gradual, was evident. His confidence grew, his skills improved, and most importantly, his perspective on life began to change completely. One day, looking back, the protagonist realized how much he had grown. Everything he had learned and worked for now manifested in a stronger and more capable version of himself. It was as if something great was being born, a new version of him that he had never imagined. With each challenge overcome, he felt more certain that he was destined for great things. A sense of awe overtook him as he saw how far he had come. He was incredibly proud of himself, but also surprised by how quickly he had transformed his life. He was no longer the same person who had started this journey. He had grown, evolved, and become someone much stronger, more confident, and better prepared to face whatever came his way. The big moment had arrived. The protagonist was facing his greatest challenge, yet a test that would put everything he had learned to the test. The hours of work, the doubts, and frustrations seemed to have brought him here, but the real test was now. As he approached the moment of presentation, nerves began to take over him. Was he ready? Had he done enough? Anxiety overtook him, and every second felt like an eternity. The fear of failure appeared once again, like a shadow that followed closely behind. However, despite everything, he knew that he couldn't turn back. No matter how nervous he was, it was time to prove what he had learned and achieved. He had to believe in himself. Everything I need is already inside me, he thought, repeating in his mind that he could do it. In the end, the nerves turned into a source of energy. Although he couldn't avoid the anxiety, he understood that these nerves were part of the process, a sign that he was doing something meaningful. With this affirmation in mind, he prepared to face the challenge with courage, knowing that, no matter what happened, he had come this far for a reason. The moment of truth arrived, and the tension was palpable. The protagonist took the final step, facing his greatest challenge with all he had. In a silence that seemed eternal, everything stopped. The wait was agonizing, but when the result of his effort was finally revealed, everyone's reaction was astounding. He had managed to overcome the challenge, and surprise and satisfaction filled the air. The spotlight was not only on him, but also on everyone who had accompanied him in this process. The testimonies of those who had witnessed his journey quickly followed. Everyone marveled at his transformation, at how he had achieved what seemed impossible. What had started as a distant dream was now a tangible reality, and the satisfaction of having achieved it was indescribable. Every doubt, every mistake, had been part of the recipe for this success. Now, the protagonist had not only achieved his goal, but he had also proven that constant effort, perseverance, and belief in oneself are the keys to achieving any goal. In that moment, he looked around and smiled, knowing that his success was not only a personal achievement, but also an inspiration for everyone around him. The silence that preceded the surprise turned into applause of recognition and respect. Now that the protagonist had overcome his greatest challenge, he took a moment to reflect on everything he had been through. He looked back at the journey full of ups and downs and understood that every step, every fall, had been crucial for his growth. The moments of doubt, frustration, and failure were nothing more than lessons in disguise, and everything he had learned had given him the tools he needed to get to where he was. He felt grateful for everything he had experienced. Gratitude filled him, because now he understood that every sacrifice had been worth it. Sometimes one doesn't realize how strong they are until they face the biggest challenges. That inner strength he had discovered within himself was the greatest reward of all his effort. Optimism also filled his heart. The protagonist now saw the future with new eyes. He no longer feared obstacles, but saw them as opportunities to keep learning and growing. He was ready for whatever came his way, knowing that, no matter what, he would always find a way to overcome it. Everything he had gone through had made him a better version of himself, and that learning would not only serve him, but anyone willing to listen to his story. With a smile on his face, the protagonist turned directly to the camera, looking into the eyes of those watching. "Everything I've achieved, you can achieve too," he said firmly. He knew that his story wasn't just his own, but also the story of everyone who had ever thought about giving up. If he could overcome his doubts and obstacles, then anyone could too. Each one of us has the ability to do amazing things, he continued. No matter how difficult the road seems, there is always a way to move forward. The key is not to give up, to keep learning from mistakes, and to believe in yourself, even when the world tells you that you can't do it. The protagonist shared his most important lessons: the importance of perseverance, faith in oneself, and the ability to see failures as stepping stones to success. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal, he asserted with certainty. In that moment, he realized that his story was only the beginning. Something even bigger was waiting for him. But the most important thing was knowing that with every person who chose to follow his path, a spark of hope and motivation would be ignited in their heart. Now that the protagonist had shared his story, the moment for action had arrived. He looked back at the camera, and with energy and conviction, he said, "If this story has inspired you, if you feel that something inside you has awakened, I want you to take action now. Don't wait any longer. The moment is now. Take that first step toward your own change, because you too have what it takes to make it happen." The urgency in his voice was clear. He knew that it wasn't enough just to listen. What mattered was doing something about it. Don't just stay with the words. Make your dreams come true. Join this community, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. There's nothing more powerful than surrounding yourself with people who support you on your journey. The protagonist continued, "Share this message with those who need it. Sometimes all someone needs is a reminder that they're not alone. Together we can achieve more. The community is where we find support, motivation, and confidence." Finally, with a look of assurance and hope, he concluded, "Remember, the first step is the most important. So why wait? Share the passion, act now, and keep moving toward your best version. And don't stop here. If you like this video, keep watching more, because each one is filled with motivation and tools to help you grow. The best is yet to come."